What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going through my semi-final AFL tips and predictions. But first, let's see how we did for the first week of finals. So in the first week, I only ended up getting the 1 out of 4. There were quite a few away teams that did win. So we'll go through them. Got the Adelaide tip incorrect. Collingwood were just way too good, to be honest. They handled the pressure far better than Adelaide did in that moment. And Adelaide, they do have a couple of injuries coming out that game. I believe Mark Keane is now questionable coming in, the All-Australian, for next week. So that certainly does interest things up a bit. But yeah, look, credit to Collingwood. They were certainly the better side and they just took more of their chances in Adelaide. I mean, you know, obviously Rankin was a big outcome into the game, but look, I feel like that wasn't the issue. When Adelaide went inside the 50, they just made too many stupid mistakes, and the Pies were able to capitalise off them. So that's massive. The fact that the Pies, you know, they had been out of form, but they got a massive response there in Adelaide. Then I got the Geelong tip correct. This was the only tip I ended up getting correct out of the week one. Yeah, look, Geelong, they were kind of just dominated the game, really, in that second and third quarter. You know, Ollie Dempsey kicked a great goal, and yeah, look, the Cats, they just really look like the flag favourites now. I think they will be the flag favourites. It was pretty much whoever won this game would be the flag favourites. But the Lions, really disappointing considering that, you know, they do play quite well at the MCG. But there, look, Lachie Neale's also looking like he could be a possible out for next week as well. So that's not good for the Lions. So, yeah, look, pretty disappointing for Brisbane. But I still got the tip correct there. Got the Giants tip incorrect. Again, this was another away team that won. The Hawks were awesome, and they were actually up by 42 points at one stage, but then the Orange Tsunami really turned it up in that third quarter, and yeah, I think they even took a lead in that last quarter, but credit to the Hawks, you know, they stood up in their moments, and since Jesse Hogan kicked that goal in the first opening minute of the game, they held them goalless for the rest of the game, the Hawks, so you'd certainly take that as a Hawks fan, and the Hawks, they're the bottom seed, but it just shows how even the competition is. They move into a semi-final against the Crows. And then the Freo Gold Coast game, definitely the best game of the round. Who would have thought the Suns, in their first ever finals campaign, would come over to Western Australia and beat the Dockers? That's exactly what they did. They deserved to win the game. They had quite a few more scoring shots, and as well as that, they were pretty much in control, really, in that second, third quarter. That they were really in control, and credit to the Suns, and Dave Swallow kicked the winner. Luke Jackson got Freo back in front by about 6 points, but then McAndrew, massive mark. They just really stood up in massive moments, the Suns, and then Dave Swallow kicked that goal. Well, he actually kicked it behind because it was touched by the defender, but he still kicked the winning point. The guy that's been there since 2010, it's such a fairy tale story. It was going to be his last game, for the Suns if they had lost that. But credit to the Suns, you know, they really stood up in some big moments. That big mark by McAndrew and that goal by Dave Swallow. If that was a few years ago or maybe even last year, you know, the Suns probably don't hold on in that moment because, you know, they've never been a side that's known to be really good at close finishes. But yeah, look, really disappointing there for the Dockers as well. You feel like maybe they did fail expectations a bit this year. Obviously, still made a home final, but they probably should have won that game. But the Suns probably deserve to win it more because, well, yeah, look, they were just the better team throughout the most of it. And Damien Hardwick's credible coaching, although shout out to Nat Five, who did play his last game officially as the Dockers colours. But we've got two cracking games that we are going to be set up this week for the semi-final, so let's get into them. So the first game, and we do start off on the Friday night, obviously, where we do have our first semi-final between Adelaide and Hawthorn. So this was obviously going to be the Friday night game if Gold Coast do make it through against Brisbane, because you just think that this is probably the better time to have on the Friday night game. And we'll start off with the Crows, obviously, as we said, really disappointing against the Pies. You know, good chance to advance through to the prelim, and they are the number one ranked side here, so them going out in straight sets is already a tough task to see, but they're coming up against the in-form Hawks, who are in some really good form, and against the Giants away from home really took it up to them. I really was considering actually tipping Hawthorn in the end, but yeah, look, the Hawks, they were really good in that game. Now, this a few worrying signs here for Adelaide. You know, they do have quite a few players out. Obviously, Rankin with that is suspended still, and he won't be back unless they make it to the grand final. And there is a chance Mark King could also be out. I think he's playing with some sort of arm injury as well, and I think there's another injury for Adelaide. So they will be a little bit, maybe even undermanned coming in against the Hawks. The Hawks, though, their injury list is pretty good at the moment. But yeah, look, the way they played against the Giants, it's hard to not to see them putting up a good fight here, and hard to see this not being a close game, because I think that these two sides to have played off twice this year. The Hawks got a win in Tassie, being about round 13 or 14, something like that. Held on by 3 points in a really low scoring game, and then the Crows at the Adelaide Oval got the job done about a month ago now, at the Adelaide Oval against the Hawks. So this is going to be a really tough match to tip. You'd be slightly leaning towards Adelaide in this one. A lot of people will be slightly leaning towards the Crows in this one. However, I just have a sneaky feeling that the Hawks might be able to make a slight fairy tale run. I know they are the 8th seed and Adelaide are the 1st seed. So this would be an incredible upset here. But yeah, I'm honestly gonna go the Hawks. No disrespect to Adelaide, but I just think that they're better side in moments, and I think when it comes to big moments, the Hawks will stand up away from home. We saw plenty of away upsets in the first round of finals, and I think we're gonna continue to see it here. I'm gonna go the Hawks here to get a massive win at the Adelaide Oval by 9 points at the Adelaide Oval. And our second and last semi-final is on the Saturday night. It's the Q Clash final. Who would have thought the Suns' first finals appearances in their history, they'll be playing off in a Q Clash? But yeah, look, again, another really exciting contest here. It is the Suns taking on the Lions. Now, we'll start with Brisbane. I just thought that Geelong really outclassed them and got massive revenge from last year, obviously. And yeah, look, the Lions, they really just got shut down by the Cats in that second half. You know, their defense was really poor when it needed to be. And the Cats, honestly, I'm not even saying this to, take the crap, but the Cats probably could have even won that game by 9 goals if they really wanted to, or 10 goals, because they were just a much more dominant side. They couldn't quite just put it on the scoreboard. And yeah, look, Brisbane, they were just really disappointing. I thought they had a decent first quarter, but they really just fell away and they weren't able to sustain the Cats' pressure and score off of it. So that's really disappointing for them. As for the Suns, well, as we said, it's pretty much a fairy tale story with them. Obviously, their first ever finals campaign, went over to Western Australia and got the win. That is a massive win for the Suns. And even if they don't win this game, you'd be still proud as a Suns fan. And gee, they're looking really good for the next few years to come. So this is going to be an awesome clash for the Q Clash. Now, usually head-to-head, it obviously favours Brisbane pretty massively here. The Lions, they've got up in almost every Q Clash in history. I think the Suns have only ever won 3 Q Clashes. However, the last game we did see Gold Coast absolutely thrash the Lions by 66 points. Now, that was over at, I forgot the name, People First Stadium. But yeah, look, so the head-to-heads definitely favour the Lions. And usually when we do get a Q Clash, the margin's always 30 plus points to the Suns or the Lions. We never usually get good Q Clashes, but I think we're in for a decent chance here and a decent Q Clash. This would be massive if we do have two sides going out in straight sets. I can't remember the last time that happened. I think it happened in 2023, I believe, though, where Port and Melbourne went out in straight sets. So I could definitely see the Lions going out in straight sets. However, just being back at the Gabba and the fact that it is still the Suns' first finals campaign, I think the Brisbane will probably win this. And even though Lockie Neal is a possible out for this game, I just think the Lions at home, they wouldn't want to go out in straight sets. Even though I could definitely see it, I'm just slightly leaning towards the Lions here. I think they'll have some big moments and they might kick a few late goals just to pull away from the Suns. But it definitely would not shock me if we do see a Gold Coast upset here, because they've got the legend Damien Hardwick, who got his first finals win since 2020. So yeah, look, I think this should be a pretty decent game, but I'm going to go the Lions here by 23 points at the Gabba. So everyone, those are my semi-finals tips, obviously just the 2 games. So we went with the Hawks by 9 at the Adelaide Oval in an upset, and the Lions to get a bit of a response back at home and advance to the preliminary finals over the Suns. So I believe that would leave us with a matchup of Hawthorn and Geelong. Geez, what a final that would be. And then the other final would be Brisbane and Collingwood. That would be absolutely amazing as well. 2 massive rivalries there. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are for these semi-finals down below in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.